The galactic threat emerges. The vast expanse of space stretched before Captain Alina Reyes as she stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, Earth's most advanced stealth frigate. Stars twinkled in the distance, deceptively peaceful against the backdrop of looming conflict. Alina's dark eyes narrowed as she studied the tactical display, her fingers drumming a restless rhythm on the command console. "Status report, Lieutenant Chen," she ordered, her voice steady despite the tension coiling in her gut. Lieutenant Chen, a young officer with a shock of jet-black hair, looked up from his station. "All systems nominal, Captain. We're maintaining position just outside the Proxima Centauri system. No sign of Xarlof activity yet." Alina nodded, her mind racing. For centuries, humanity had expanded throughout the stars, establishing colonies and forging alliances with other spacefaring species. But now, a shadow loomed over the galaxy, the Xarlof Empire, a ruthless civilization that had subjugated countless worlds over millennia. Earth and its allies stood as the last bastion of freedom against their tyrannical rule. "Captain," called out Ensign Rodriguez from the communication station, her voice tight with urgency. "Incoming transmission from Fleet Admiral Takashi. Priority Alpha." On screen, Alina commanded, straightening her posture. The weathered face of Fleet Admiral Hiroshi Takashi materialized on the main view screen, his expression grim. "Captain Rice, I'm afraid I have dire news. The Xarlof have launched a major offensive against the Arcturus colony. Our outer defenses have been breached, and civilian casualties are mounting." Alina's heart sank. Arcturus was one of humanity's oldest and most prosperous extrasolar colonies. If it fell, the path to Earth would be wide open. "What are your orders, sir?" "The UES Defiant is the only ship in range with a chance of slipping past the Xarlof blockade," Takashi explained. "Your mission is to infiltrate the system, gather intelligence on the enemy fleet composition, and if possible, evacuate key personnel and research data." "Understood, Admiral," Alina replied, her mind already formulating strategies. "We won't let you down." As the transmission ended, Alina turned to her crew. She saw determination in their eyes, mixed with fear of the challenge that lay ahead. "All right, people, this is what we've trained for. The fate of Arcturus, and possibly Earth itself, rests on our shoulders. Let's show these Xarlof bastards what humanity is made of." "Aye, Captain." The bridge crew responded in unison. Lieutenant Chen, plot a course for the Arcturus system. Engage stealth systems, and prepare for silent running. Weapons Officer, I want all systems hot but dormant. We're going in quiet, but be ready for anything. As the Defiant surged into hyperspace, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would be a turning point in the war. The coming hours would test not just her crew's skills, but the very limits of human ingenuity and courage. Hours later, the Defiant dropped out of hyperspace on the outskirts of the Arcturus system. The scene that greeted them was one of chaos and devastation. Xarlof warships, massive constructs of dark metal and pulsing energy fields, swarmed around the beleaguered human colony. Debris from destroyed ships and orbital platforms littered space, a grim testament to the ferocity of the assault. "My God," whispered Ensign Rodriguez, her face pale as she took in the carnage. Alina steeled herself against the shock. "Stay focused, people. Chen, take us in. Keep us in the sensor shadows of that debris field. Rodriguez, passive scans only. I want to know everything about that Xarlof fleet without giving away our position." The Defiant glided silently through the debris, its advanced stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible to the Xarlof sensors. As they approached the planet, the true scale of the devastation became apparent. The once gleaming cities of Arcturus were ablaze, pillars of smoke rising into the atmosphere. "Captain," Chen reported, his voice tight with suppressed emotion, "I'm detecting multiple ground-based distress signals. It looks like there are still pockets of resistance holding out in some of the research facilities." Alina nodded grimly. "Good. That means we still have a chance to salvage something from this nightmare. Rodriguez, can you isolate the location of the primary research complex? Yes, Mom. It's in the northern hemisphere, about 50 kilometers from the capital city. Scans show it's still intact, but under heavy assault. That's our target then, Elena decided. Chen, bring us into low orbit. We're going to attempt a precision insertion. I'll lead a ground team to extract the researchers and their data. As the Defiant maneuvered into position, a sudden alert blared from the tactical station. Captain, shouted the weapons officer, we've got incoming. 3 Xarloth interceptors on an attack vector. Elena's mind raced. They couldn't risk a direct confrontation. Not here. Not now. Evasive maneuvers. Chen, get us behind that destroyed space station. Rodriguez, prepare a wide-spectrum E-impulse. Let's scramble their sensors and buy us some time. The Defiant banked hard, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy weapons from the Xarloth ships. As they ducked behind the hulk of the ruined station, Rodriguez unleashed the E-impulse. The pursuing ships faltered, their systems momentarily overloaded. Now's our chance, Elena commanded. Full power to the engines. Take us down. The Defiant plunged into Arcturus's atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot from the friction. As they broke through the cloud cover, the devastated landscape of the colony stretched out before them. The research complex stood as an island of resistance in a sea of destruction, its shields flickering under constant bombardment from Xarloth ground forces. This is going to be a hot insertion, Elena told her crew as she suited up in the ship's armory. Lieutenant Cora, you have the con. Keep the ship cloaked and be ready for immediate extraction on my signal. Joined by a small team of elite Marines, Elena boarded the drop shuttle. As the bay doors opened, revealing the chaos below, she took a deep breath. The fate of humanity might well rest on the success of this mission. For Earth, she murmured, then raised her voice. Let's show these aliens what humans are made of. Go, go, go. The shuttle plummeted from the Defiance Bay, streaking towards the besieged research complex. As they neared the ground, Xarloth anti-aircraft fire erupted around them. The pilot, a veteran of countless combat drops, wove through the barrage with preternatural skill. With a bone-jarring thud, the shuttle touched down in the complex's central courtyard. Elena and her team burst out, weapons at the ready. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of energy weapons discharge. This is Captain Rice of the UES Defiant, Elena shouted into her comm as they advanced. We're here to evacuate. Where's the head researcher? A haggard voice crackled over the channel. Oh, thank the stars. This is Dr. Ilara Venn. We're holed up in the main lab, sublevel 3. But Captain, we can't leave yet. We've made a breakthrough that could turn the tide of the war. As Elena and her team fought their way through the complex, dispatching Xarloth assault troops with precision and teamwork, she couldn't help but wonder, what discovery could be so important that it was worth risking everything? And would they be able to escape with it before the full might of the Xarloth fleet descended upon them? The fate of Arcturus, and perhaps the entire human race, hung in the balance as the battle raged on. Humanity's secret weapon unveiled. Captain Elena Reyes and her team pushed deeper into the research complex, their weapons blazing as they encountered pockets of Xarloth resistance. The aliens, with their insectoid features and gleaming exoskeletons, fought with a ruthless efficiency that spoke of millennia of conquest. Martinez, watch your 6, Elena shouted, dropping a Xarloth warrior that had attempted to flank them. The Marine nodded gratefully, then returned fire at another group of advancing enemies. As they approached the entrance to sublevel 3, a massive explosion rocked the building. Chunks of ceiling rained down, and Elena's HUD flashed warnings about structural integrity. Dr. Venn, what's your status? Elena barked into her comm. The scientist's voice came back, strained but determined. We're still here, Captain, but the Xarloth are throwing everything they have at us. Whatever you do, you cannot let them get their hands on Project Prometheus. Alina's mind raced. Project Prometheus. She'd never heard of it, but if it was important enough for the Xarloth to commit this level of force, it must be significant. Understood, Doctor. Hold tight. We're almost there. With a final push, Alina and her team breached the lab's defenses. Inside, they found a scene of organized chaos. A group of haggard scientists huddled around a central console, while a handful of security personnel maintained a defensive perimeter. Dr. Ilara Ven, a tall woman with silver hair and piercing blue eyes, approached Alina. "Captain, thank goodness you're here. We need to move quickly." Alina nodded, gesturing for her team to secure the room. "Doctor, what exactly is Project Prometheus? And how can it help us against the Xarloth?" Dr. Ven's eyes gleamed with a mixture of excitement and fear. "It's a quantum entanglement device, Captain. We've discovered a way to manipulate subspace in ways the Xarloth never imagined possible. With this technology, we could revolutionize faster-than-light travel, communication, and weapons." A thunderous impact shook the lab, and alarms blared. "Structural integrity at 40% and falling," one of the scientists called out. "We're out of time," Alina decided. "Doctor, gather everything you need. We're leaving now." As the scientists scrambled to collect data cores and prototype components, Alina's comm crackled to life. "Captain, this is the Defiant." Lieutenant Cora's voice came through, tense with urgency. "We got a problem. A Xarloth dreadnought just dropped out of hyperspace. Our stealth systems won't fool it for long." Alina's blood ran cold. A dreadnought could reduce the entire planet to molten slag. "Understood, Lieutenant. Prepare for immediate extraction. We'll be topside in 5 minutes." The next few minutes were a blur of frantic activity and running battles. Alina's team, now burdened with crucial scientific equipment and personnel, fought their way back to the surface. The Xarloth, sensing their prize slipping away, pressed their attack with renewed vigor. As they emerged into the courtyard where their shuttle waited, Alina's heart sank. A Xarloth dropship hovered overhead, disgorging fresh troops. Their path to escape was cut off. "Martinez, Jackson, covering fire," Alina ordered. "Everyone else, get the scientists to the shuttle." The air filled with the scream of energy weapons as Alina's Marines engaged the Xarloth forces. Dr. Ven stumbled, nearly dropping a critical component of Project Prometheus. Alina caught her, half carrying the scientists toward their extraction point. Just as it seemed they would be overwhelmed, the sky lit up with a brilliant flash. The Defiant decloaked directly above them, its point defense systems laying down a withering barrage that shredded the Xarloth dropship and scattered its ground forces. "Go, go, go," Alina shouted, practically throwing the last of the scientists into the shuttle. She laid down covering fire as her Marines retreated, then leaped aboard just as the engines roared to life. The shuttle rocketed skyward, weaving through anti-aircraft fire as it raced to rendezvous with the Defiant. Alina's heart pounded in her ears as she watched the tactical display, seeing the massive form of the Xarloth dreadnought growing ever larger. "Cora, tell me you have a plan to get us out of here," Alina said as their shuttle docked with the frigate. "Working on it, Captain," came the reply. "But that dreadnought's got us locked. We can't jump to hyperspace without them following." Alina's mind raced. Then her eyes fell on the crate containing the Prometheus device. A crazy, desperate idea began to form. "Dr. Ven," she called out as they raced onto the bridge. "You said this device could be weaponized. How quickly can you get it operational?" The scientist's eyes widened as she grasped Alina's intent. "It's highly experimental, Captain. We've never tested it at this scale." "Well, we're about to," Alina replied grimly. "Because right now, it's the only shot we've got." The next few minutes were a frenzy of activity. As the Defiant jinked and weaved to avoid the dreadnought's massive energy weapons, Dr. Ven and her team worked feverishly to integrate the Prometheus device into the ship's systems. "Captain, we're ready," Dr. Ven announced, her voice tense with anticipation. But I must warn you, the effects are unpredictable. This could destroy us along with them. Elena looked at the tactical display, watching as the dreadnought maneuvered for a killing blow. She thought of Earth, of all the human colonies that would fall if they failed here. "The risk is worth it, Doctor," she said firmly. "Lieutenant Chen, bring us about. I want the dreadnought lined up in our sights." The Defiant pivoted gracefully, facing the oncoming juggernaut. The Xarlof vessel, confident in its overwhelming firepower, pressed its attack. "Now, Doctor," Elena commanded. Dr. Venn activated the Prometheus device. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, reality itself appeared to warp around the Defiant. A beam of scintillating energy, unlike anything Elena had ever seen, lanced out from the frigate. It struck the dreadnought dead center. Instead of an explosion, there was a moment of profound silence. Then, to the astonishment of everyone on the bridge, the massive Xarlof ship simply vanished. One moment it was there, filling their view screen with its menacing bulk. The next, it was gone, leaving behind nothing but empty space and a faint ripple in the fabric of space-time. "By all that's holy," whispered Lieutenant Cora. "What did we just do?" Dr. Venn's voice was filled with awe and not a little fear. "We opened a localized rupture in subspace. That ship, it's been shunted into another dimension entirely." The implications were staggering. With this technology, humanity now possessed a weapon that could remove Xarlof ships from existence itself. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted dramatically. As the crew of the Defiant absorbed the magnitude of what had just occurred, Elena's mind was already racing ahead. They had the advantage now, but for how long? The Xarlof would not take this setback lightly. And how would this new weapon change the nature of warfare itself? "Lieutenant Chen," she said, her voice steadied despite the turmoil of her thoughts. "Set a course for Earth. Maximum speed." She turned to Dr. Venn. "Doctor, I need you to prepare a full report on Project Prometheus. The Admiralty needs to know exactly what we're dealing with here." As the Defiant leaped into hyperspace, leaving the ruins of Arcturus behind, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. They had won a crucial victory, but the true test was yet to come. The fate of humanity would depend on how they wielded this awesome and terrible new power. The war was entering a new phase, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Battle for the core worlds. The UES Defiant streaked through hyperspace, carrying its precious cargo of revolutionary technology and the hopes of humanity. Captain Elena Reyes stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the swirling vortex ahead, her mind churning with the implications of what they'd discovered. "ETA to Earth, Lieutenant Chen," she asked, breaking the tense silence on the bridge. 3 hours, Captain," Chen replied, his fingers dancing over the navigation controls. "We're pushing the engines to their limits." Elena nodded, then turned to Dr. Venn, who was hunched over a console, furiously analyzing data from the Prometheus device. "Doctor, what's our status? Any chance that Xarlof can track us?" The scientist looked up, her eyes bloodshot from exhaustion. "I don't believe so, Captain. The quantum entanglement effect should have masked our hyperspace signature. But," she hesitated. "But what, Doctor?" Elena pressed. "The device is unstable. That last activation nearly burnt out our power core. We need to get this to a proper research facility before we can even think about using it again." Before Elena could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. "Multiple hyperspace signatures detected," shouted Lieutenant Cora from the tactical station. "It's a Xarlof battle group." Elena's heart raced. How the hell did they find us? "Unknown, Captain," Cora replied, her voice tight. "But they're on an intercept course. ETA 2 minutes. Battle stations," Elena commanded. "Chen, evasive maneuvers. Cora, charge weapons. And someone get me fleet command." The bridge erupted into controlled chaos as the crew prepared for combat. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Admiral Takashi's gray face. "Captain Rice, report," he ordered. Alina quickly briefed him on the situation, explaining the Prometheus device and its potential. The Admiral's eyes widened as he grasped the implications. "This changes everything," he muttered. Then, more forcefully, "Captain, you must get that device to Earth at all costs. I'm dispatching every available ship to your location, but it'll take time. You'll have to hold out until then." "Understood, Admiral," Alina replied, her jaw set with determination. "We won't let you down." As the transmission ended, the Defiant dropped out of hyperspace. The view that greeted them was terrifying. A dozen Xarloth warships, led by a massive battlecruiser, bore down on their position. "Incoming transmission," Rodriguez announced. "It's the Xarloth flagship." A harsh, insectoid face filled the view screen. "Human vessel," the Xarloth commander chittered. "Surrender the Prometheus device immediately. Comply, and your deaths will be quick." Alina's eyes narrowed. "This is Captain Alina Reyes of the UES Defiant, and here's our answer. Go to hell." She cut the transmission. "Cora, target their lead ship. Fire everything we've got." The Defiant's weapons blazed to life, lancing out at the Xarloth battlecruiser. Energy torpedoes and railgun rounds peppered its shields, causing them to flare brilliantly. But the Xarloth response was devastating. A hail of plasma bolts and energy beams slammed into the Defiant, making the ship shudder violently. "Shields at 60% and falling," Cora shouted over the din of battle. "We can't take much more of this." Alina's mind raced. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had one advantage. The Xarloth wanted the Prometheus device intact. They couldn't risk destroying the Defiant outright. "Chen, plot a course through the asteroid field at coordinates 227 Mark IV, she ordered. "Cora, redirect all non-essential power to the engines and shields." The Defiant dove into the dense field of space rocks, weaving between massive boulders as the Xarloth ships gave chase. Alina's strategy became clear. Use the asteroids as cover, forcing the larger Xarloth ships to break formation. "Dr. Venn," Alina called out, "I need options. Can we use the Prometheus device?" The scientist shook her head frantically. "It's too unstable, Captain. Using it now could tear us apart." A massive impact rocked the ship. "Direct hit," Cora yelled. "Shields at 30%. Alina gritted her teeth. They were running out of time and options. Then, an idea struck her. Crazy, desperate, but possibly their only chance. "Doctor, you said the device creates localized subspace ruptures, right?" Alina asked, her mind racing. "Could we use it to create a controlled wormhole?" Dr. Venn's eyes widened as she grasped Alina's intent. "It's never been tested, but, theoretically, yes. We could open a shortcut through space-time." "Do it," Alina commanded. "Chen, plot a course for Earth. The instant that wormhole opens, take us through." The next few minutes were a blur of frantic activity, as the Defiant ducked and weaved through the asteroid field, barely staying ahead of the Xarloth onslaught. Dr. Venn and her team worked feverishly to reconfigure the Prometheus device. "Ready, Captain," Dr. Venn finally shouted. "But I must warn you, this is incredibly dangerous. We have no idea where exactly we'll end up." "It's a risk we have to take," Alina replied grimly. "Activate the device. Now." A beam of scintillating energy burst from the Defiant's bow, tearing a hole in the fabric of space itself. The swirling vortex of the wormhole yawned before them, a maelstrom of cosmic energies. "Hold on to something," Alina yelled as the Defiant plunged into the anomaly. The ship bucked and shuddered, alarms blaring as it was subjected to forces beyond normal physics. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, they were everywhere and nowhere at once. The very atoms of their beings stretched across light years. Then, with a final lurch, they burst back into normal space. Alina blinked, trying to orient herself. "Status report. We're "We're in the Sol system, Captain," Chen said, his voice filled with disbelief. "Just beyond Mars orbit. We did it." A cheer went up from the crew, but Elena's relief was short-lived. "Any sign of pursuit?" Cora shook her head. "Negative, Captain. But we're picking up massive energy signatures throughout the system. It's the XRLF. They're here in force." The tactical display told a grim story. A massive XRLF armada had gathered in the solar system, poised to strike at the heart of humanity. The battle for Earth was about to begin. "Send an emergency broadcast to Fleet Command," Elena ordered. "Let them know we have the Prometheus device and critical intelligence on the XRLF fleet." As the Defiant raced towards Earth, Elena stared out at the looming conflict. They had escaped one battle, only to find themselves on the front lines of an even greater one. The fate of humanity would be decided here, in the skies above their homeworld. With the power of the Prometheus device and the indomitable spirit of her crew, Elena vowed to give the XRLF a fight they'd never forget. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin, and humanity would not go quietly into the night. Turning the tide, the UES Defiant streaked through the Sol system, a lone vanguard racing against time. Earth loomed ahead, a blue marble suspended in the void, blissfully unaware of the apocalyptic battle about to unfold in its skies. "Fleet Command responding to our hail, Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, her voice tight with tension. Admiral Takashi's hologram materialized on the bridge, his face a mask of grim determination. "Captain Rice, your timing is impeccable. The XRLF fleet has just begun its advance on our outer defense perimeters." Elena nodded, her mind already formulating strategies. "Admiral, we have the Prometheus device. With your permission, I'd like to coordinate a counteroffensive." "Granted," Takashi replied without hesitation. "I'm transmitting rendezvous coordinates for our primary battle group. Get that device to our flagship. It may be our only hope." As the Defiant approached the gathering human fleet, Elena felt a swell of pride. Ships of all classes and sizes had answered humanity's call, from nimble corvettes to massive dreadnoughts. It was an impressive sight, but Elena knew it wouldn't be enough against the technological superiority of the XRLF. Docking procedure initiated with the UES Everest, Chen reported as they approached the hulking human flagship. Minutes later, Elena stood in the Everest's war room, surrounded by Earth's top military brass. Dr. Venn quickly briefed them on the Prometheus device's capabilities and limitations. "So let me get this straight," General Santos, a grizzled veteran of a dozen campaigns, growled. "This thing can open wormholes and shunt entire enemy ships into another dimension. Sounds like science fiction to me." "With all due respect, General," Elena interjected, "I've seen it work firsthand. It's our best shot at evening the odds." Admiral Takashi nodded. "Agreed, but we can't rely on it entirely. We need a comprehensive battle plan." He turned to Elena. "Captain Reyes, given your experience with the device and recent combat against the XRLF, I'm putting you in charge of our Special Operations Group. Your mission will be to target key enemy assets and create openings for our main fleet." Elena's mind raced with the implications. It was an enormous responsibility, but she was ready. "Understood, Admiral. I won't let you down." As the human fleet took up defensive positions around Earth, that XRLF armada appeared on the edge of the system. The sight was terrifying. Thousands of alien ships, their biomechanical designs an affront to human sensibilities. Elena stood on the bridge of the Defiant, now leading a task force of elite ships equipped with scaled-down versions of the Prometheus device. "All ships, report in," she commanded. One by one, her squadron leaders checked in. They were as ready as they'd ever be. "This is it, people," Elena addressed her task force. "Everything we fought for comes down to this moment. The XRLF think they can crush us under their heel, that 10,000 years of empire makes them invincible. Today we prove them wrong. Today we show them the indomitable spirit of humanity." A chorus of determined affirmations filled the comm channel. The battle erupted with frightening intensity. Karloff ships unleashed a barrage of energy weapons that lit up space like a supernova. The human fleet responded in kind, filling the void with missiles, railgun rounds, and particle beams. Alina's task force darted through the chaos, targeting key Karloff command ships. The Prometheus devices, though limited in power compared to the original, proved devastatingly effective. One by one, Karloff dreadnoughts winked out of existence, shunted into unknown dimensions. But the aliens adapted quickly. They began focusing their fire on Alina's ships, recognizing the threat they posed. Evasive maneuvers. Alina shouted as a Karloff battlecruiser bore down on them. Charged the Prometheus device. The Defiant jinked and weaved, narrowly avoiding the onslaught of enemy fire. Just as the battlecruiser moved in for the kill, Alina gave the order. Now. A beam of scintillating energy lanced out, catching the Karloff ship mid-turn. For a moment, reality seemed to warp around it. Then, with a silent flash, it vanished. But the victory was short-lived. "Captain," Cora yelled. "Multiple signatures incoming. They're launching some kind of boarding pods." Alina's blood ran cold as she saw the swarm of small, organic-looking pods hurtling towards Earth's defense platforms and larger ships. "Warn the fleet," she ordered. "Prepare for boarding actions." The battle devolved into chaos as Karloff shock troops materialized inside human ships and stations. Alina knew she had to act fast. "Set a course for the Karloff flagship," she commanded. "We're going to cut the head off the snake." The Defiant plunged deeper into the heart of the enemy formation, its advanced stealth systems allowing it to slip past the Karloff's outer defenses. As they approached the massive alien command ship, Alina felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. This was it, their chance to end the war in one decisive strike. "Prometheus device at full charge," Dr. Venn reported, her voice tense. Alina took a deep breath. "Target their main reactor. Fire when ready." The energy beam lashed out, more powerful than any they'd attempted before. It struck the Karloff flagship dead center. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a reality-bending flash, a massive section of the ship simply ceased to exist. The effect was catastrophic. Secondary explosions rippled through the alien vessel as its power grid overloaded. The mighty flagship began to break apart, taking a significant portion of the Karloff command structure with it. A ragged cheer went up from the human fleet as they witnessed the enemy flagship's destruction. It was the turning point they desperately needed. But Alina knew the battle was far from over. The remaining Karloff forces, though in disarray, still outnumbered the human fleet, and the Defiant systems were redlining from the massive energy expenditure. As Alina prepared to rejoin the main battle, a priority transmission came through. It was Admiral Takashi, his face a mixture of hope and urgency. "Captain Reyes," he said, "you've given us a fighting chance. But we need one more miracle. Our long-range sensors have detected a Karloff reinforcement fleet entering the system. If they join the battle, we're finished." Alina's mind raced. The Defiant was in no shape for another major engagement. But then, an idea struck her, audacious, probably suicidal, but potentially war-ending. "Admiral," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins, "I have a plan. But I'll need every ounce of power we can muster." As Alina outlined her strategy, she saw the mixture of awe and concern on the Admiral's face. It was a desperate gambit, but in war, sometimes desperation was the mother of victory. "Very well, Captain," Takashi said finally. "You have full authorization. May God be with you." As the transmission ended, Alina turned to her crew. She saw fear in their eyes, but also trust and determination. "I won't lie to you," she said. "What we're about to attempt has never been done before. It could destroy us along with the enemy. But if we succeed, we end this war today. Are you with me?" The response was unanimous. "To the end, Captain." Elena nodded, feeling the surge of pride. Then let's make history. For Earth, for humanity. Engage. The Defiant surged forward, racing to meet the incoming Xarloth reinforcements. Behind them, the battle for Earth raged on, the fate of two civilizations hanging in the balance. Whatever happened next would change the course of galactic history forever. A new era dawns. The UEA's Defiant streaked towards the incoming Xarloth reinforcement fleet, a lone ship against an armada. Captain Elena Reyes stood at the helm, her face a mask of determination. The plan was audacious, bordering on insane, but it was their only hope. Status of the Prometheus device, Elena asked, her voice steady despite the tension. Dr. Venn looked up from her console, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. We've rerouted all available power, Captain. The device is charged beyond anything we've attempted before. But I must warn you, the stress on our systems is critical. We may not survive this. Elena nodded grimly. Understood, Doctor. But if we don't try, humanity won't survive. This ends today, one way or another. As the Xarloth fleet came into view, its massive ships blotting out the stars, Elena felt a moment of doubt. Could they really pull this off? Then she thought of Earth, of all the lives depending on them, and her resolve hardened. All hands, brace for impact, she commanded. Initiate Prometheus sequence. Now. The ship shuddered as the device activated, drawing power from every system. A beam of pure energy, more intense than anything they'd created before, lanced out from the Defiant. It struck the lead Xarloth ship, then seemed to spread, enveloping the entire enemy fleet in a web of scintillating light. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, reality itself seemed to warp and twist. The fabric of space-time buckled under the strain of the Prometheus device's power. It's working. Dr. Van shouted over the groaning of the ship's stressed hull. We're creating a massive subspace rupture. Elena watched in awe as the Xarloth fleet began to distort, stretched and twisted by forces beyond comprehension. Then, with a silent flash that seemed to momentarily outshine the sun, the entire enemy armada vanished. A stunned silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the blaring of alarms and the crackle of overloaded systems. Did we do it? Lieutenant Chen asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Before Elena could respond, the ship lurched violently. Captain, Cora shouted from her station. The subspace rupture is collapsing. It's pulling us in. Elena's mind raced. They had succeeded in removing the Xarloth threat, but at what cost? Full power to engines, she ordered. Get us out of here. The Defiant's engines screamed in protest as they fought against the pull of the collapsing rupture. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed they wouldn't make it. Then, with a final surge of power, they broke free. As the rupture closed behind them, with a reality-bending flash, Elena allowed herself a moment of relief. They had done it. Against all odds, they had turned the tide. Status report, she called out, forcing herself to focus on the immediate situation. Hull integrity at 62%, Cora reported. Multiple systems offline. We're running on emergency power. The Prometheus device is completely burned out, Dr. Venn added. But Captain, it worked. The entire Xarloth fleet is gone. Elena nodded, feeling the weight of their accomplishment. Get me fleet command, she ordered. Admiral Takashi's hologram appeared, his face a mixture of disbelief and hope. Captain Rice, is it true? The reinforcements. Confirmed, Admiral. Elena replied, allowing a small smile to cross her face. The Xarloth reinforcement fleet has been neutralized. A cheer erupted from somewhere off-screen, quickly growing in volume. Elena could imagine the scene playing out across the human fleet as the news spread. Captain, Takashi said, his voice thick with emotion, you've done it. With their reinforcements gone, the remaining Xarloth forces are in full retreat. We've won. The implications of those words hit Elena like a physical force. They had won. Humanity had faced its greatest threat and emerged victorious. In the days that followed, as the Defiant limped back to Earth for repairs, the full scope of their victory became clear. The Axarloth Empire, reeling from the loss of its main fleet and the destruction of its flagship, sued for peace. The war that had threatened to annihilate humanity had ended not with their extinction, but with their triumph. As Elena stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, watching the sun rise over Earth, she reflected on all they had been through. The sacrifices, the losses, the moments of despair and flashes of hope. It had all led to this moment. "Captain," a voice called from behind her. She turned to see Dr. Venn approaching, a tablet in her hand. "I thought you'd want to see this." Elena took the tablet, her eyes widening as she read the report. "Is this confirmed?" Dr. Venn nodded, a smile playing at her lips. "Multiple sources. It seems the Prometheus device did more than just remove the Harloff fleet. The subspace rupture it created has opened up new regions of the galaxy for exploration. We're detecting signals from civilizations we never knew existed." Elena looked back out at Earth, feeling a sense of wonder and possibility. They had fought to save their world, but in doing so, they had opened up the universe. "You know what this means, don't you?" she said, turning back to Dr. Venn. "The war is over, but our real journey is just beginning." As if in response, a sleek new ship rose from Earth's atmosphere, its hull gleaming in the sunlight. It was the first of a new class of exploratory vessels, built with the knowledge gained from the Prometheus device. Elena felt a familiar thrill of excitement. The galaxy was waiting, filled with new wonders and challenges. And humanity, tested by fire and emerging stronger than ever, was ready to meet it. "Well, Doctor," Elena said, a grin spreading across her face, "shall we see what's out there?" As they turned to leave, Elena took one last look at Earth. They had saved it, and in doing so, had ushered in a new era for humanity. The stars, once a distant dream, were now within reach. The Axarloth War had ended, but humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. And Captain Elena Reyes, hero of Earth, savior of humanity, was ready to lead the way into this brave new future. The end.